Hi, I'm Sami, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. I am so excited to have Janine Esbrand, who is the founder of LightBOX Coaching. Now, I'm excited about this because, as y'all know, I am wild and child-free, proud auntie for life. But many of my listeners, they got their mommy game on, So I wanted to bring an expert on to really talk about the weighty issue that is motherhood, employees, and the workplace. Because so often, I deal with clients who they were stay-at-home mom, or for some reason they had to leave the job market due to, having children, and it kind of delays some of their career, and it makes it hard for them to return after maternity leave or, an extended period of time. So I really want to bring someone on the show who could break this down for us and how women can, keep their careers going even through motherhood. So Janine, I've been rambling on about you. So how about you give us your elevator pitch and just share a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Sami. I'm really excited to be here. So as you said, I help women who want to build careers that they love whilst raising a family. So I help them to return to work confidently and also figure out the type of career that they want to have post-motherhood.
Awesome. And I have a question, for me as a career specialist, I see women, when they're ready to start the journey, they want a resume written, what have you. But they usually put on, the best face for me since I'm going to be their career coach. But for you, what are 2 or 3 obstacles that you see your clients deal with when they're trying to return from maternity leave?
Okay, so one of the biggest obstacles is confidence. So where people have been out of the office for, it could be months, for some people it could be years if they've taken an extended career break, they take a massive knock in confidence. So they feel as though they don't know whether they can go back to doing the type of work that they were doing before, or whether the job market is going to accept them. And so I really work with them to get to the place where they realize that actually in the grand scheme of things, where they had a quite long career before, the amount of time that they were off is a lot shorter than the amount of time that they were working prior to their career break. So helping them to realize that, yeah, you've taken a break, but in that time you've gained some really valuable skills and you would be able to go back to what you were doing before. It takes some time to readjust, but your skills are there, your experience is there, nobody can take that away from you. So the confidence piece is the first hurdle to get over. And then the other thing is people often have a value shift after they've had kids. They feel different about their career goals and their long-term aspirations. And so I work with them to figure out, well, do you still want to do what you were doing before? And if you aren't going to do that, what else could you possibly do? How could you take some of the skills and experiences that you gained before and perhaps repackage them so you can take your career in a different direction if that's what you want to do? So those are the 2 main things that we need to look at. So it's the confidence and it's the, what direction do you really want to take with your career now?
I can definitely see how the value shift would become quite a serious thing because you have to, because kids, it's not like you have a cat. You can't just put a bowl of cornflakes in the kitchen and be like, there you guys go. I'm going to go on a business trip. The neighbor will come in to feed and water you later on and, make sure you keep it all in the box. They'll scoop it too. You can do that with kids. So, when you're thinking about this sort of value shift, I imagine that it can be culture shock when women do return to the workforce. Can you talk a little bit about some things to expect when you're expecting to return to the office?
Yeah, definitely. I can share a bit about my experience too. So I was a lawyer, a corporate lawyer. And when I was pregnant with my son, I was thinking, how am I going to continue this career and be the type of mother that I want to be and be present? Because I was working really long hours. And after I had my son, whereas before I wanted to climb the ladder and make it to partner, afterwards, that didn't seem as important to me as having work-life balance. And so there was a complete shift for me. And then when I went back to being a lawyer, I realized that some of the things that were really important to me before in terms of the transactions I was working on and getting to the next stage in certain circles within my industry, they no longer felt as important. So I just felt different in terms of what I wanted to achieve going forward. And I think that's something that people might experience. So you go back and you might expect that you'll just go back into what you were doing before, and you may well go back to the role, but you might feel different about the work that you're doing. You might look around and think, actually, I don't feel like I fit into this role anymore. I'm not the ambitious woman who's got all the time in the world to hang around the office and go to networking events after work, because I have a child that I want to get back to. And so there can be a bit of an internal struggle and conflict, because you think, I've worked so hard to build this career up, but now I don't necessarily feel as though I want to go in the same direction as I was going before. So that internal conflict is something that people can feel. And so it's good to acknowledge that, and then to look at things and decide whether you do want to continue, but maybe it looks a little bit different, or you want to do something completely different.
That makes total sense. I feel like after you go through that, what seems like to be an excruciating marathon of a little bowling ball shooting through your body, I feel like after that, you're like, okay, I've kind of faced some big challenges. Maybe I need
major ones.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I've conquered some stuff in my life. But, it sounds like that's still something that if you're, an ambitious career woman, can be a scary prospect. How do you work with people who maybe they've just found out that their egos are preggo, or they've been planning it, they got a bullet journal that's all about becoming a mommy? How do you deal with folks who want to become mothers, but their career is still quite important to them? Do you do any prep work with them, some worksheets? How does it go down?
Yeah, so if someone's in the stage where they're not yet a mum and they're in the planning stage, that's really a good place to be, because a lot of people go into it and don't do enough forward planning. And so in that stage, you can start to be thinking about, one, building your network within your organization, because when you come back, you're going to want people in your corner who are going to be there when you're going to have those difficult days, when you're trying to juggle everything and everything feels like it's not going right. And also people higher up who you're going to want to be receptive to perhaps your flexible working request, or who you're going to want to be able to show them that even though you might not be able to work in exactly the same way, you're still committed to your career. So really starting to get yourself known within your organization as someone who is valuable to the firm or to the organization, so that afterwards, when you come back, you're able to build on that and say, I've added immense value to this team and to this firm. And just because I've had a baby now, that doesn't mean that I don't still want to do that. So getting yourself known for being a good worker and being someone who's committed to the overall goals of your organization is definitely a good look. And then also, just thinking about what different roles you could possibly do, or how your role might change or expand or morph once you go back, and then being strategic. So give you an example, I was working as a corporate lawyer. So you might be a corporate lawyer and thinking, transactional work's not going to work for me going back. Perhaps I could shift into doing more contract work, which might have better hours. So as you're building up towards going to motherhood, you could say, let me make some tweaks to the type of work that I'm doing, so that later on it's going to fit better with the type of lifestyle that I want to have. So you can start thinking about those types of things beforehand. And so when I work with clients who are in that stage, I just start asking them questions about, what would your vision be? So once you have your baby, tell me, what would it look like? What would the ideal work scenario look like? And then we can work backwards from there and look at where they are now and what kinds of adjustments they could start to make now that are going to help them to reach that picture that they painted for me or for themselves after they become a mum.
Oh, that's clever. It's always good when you can reverse engineer that sort of success. But you're right when you were saying before that a lot of times, babies, they're not always scheduled. So like when you're dealing with folks who, they got baby in tow, they got their, yoga pants on, they're getting to where like they love being with the baby, but they know that they want to keep some of their skills fresh. What do you recommend for people who maybe they're not just going to do a simple maternity leave? How can they still keep some of their skills fresh, maybe keep a toe in the industry? Do you have any advice for those women?
Yeah, I definitely advise those women to use the opportunity while they're off to skill up. There's so many resources, there's online courses, there's different platforms that you can access, places that you can go, or you can do things virtually to improve your skill set or change it. So if you're off and you're thinking, okay, I really need to learn, say, social media, or I really need to learn a different skill that you don't have, it's an amazing opportunity. You're off with your child. You can be playing with them and you could be listening to podcasts, or you can be listening to audios on a course and be learning while you're off, and that helps you to feel like you're still doing something for yourself around looking after your child. And then if you're somebody who works in an industry that lends itself well to contracting or freelancing, I would say that that's a really good way to keep your foot in. So say you're a graphic designer, for example, you could do some freelance work. So you could take on just a few projects here and there so that on your resume or on your CV, you'll be able to show that. So when you do decide to go back to work after a few years, you can say, well, yeah, I've been off raising a family, but I've also kept my skills up to date through freelancing. I've worked on X, Y, or Z project. So instead of just thinking, yeah, I'm just home with my child, just think long term, what types of little things could I be doing, small roles or volunteering or getting involved in that's going to still add to my career in the longer term.
Okay. No, and those are all great things because I know that as a career coach, some of my trickiest cases have been with folks who just, for one reason or another, they just couldn't keep, a toe in the industry, and that made it difficult on their return.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit because we keep talking about the mamas. What about the papas? Because that's the thing. Maybe this is a personal soapbox, but I hate it when men say they're babysitting their own children. It's like, no, sir.
You're not babysitting your own child.
No. Dude, like you're the sperm donor. Like that is like half your genetic material. At the very least, you should be able to watch them while your wife is trying to like wash her damn hair. So
Yeah.
Let's dive into the baby daddies because you're doing about, returning to work. But when we're talking about support systems, what advice do you give for, the women who have a male partner around? How do you make that happen? Tell me some stuff.
Yeah, I will talk about that. And before I do, I literally watched a video the other day and there was this lady who's interviewing people and she stopped a man in the street and said to him, how do you make it work as a working father? And he was just like, huh? And she's like, yeah, how do you balance your career with being a father? And his face was just like, I don't even know how to answer that question. And she asked a number of different men who were walking down the street with their kids because nobody says that. Nobody asks the man, like, how do you juggle being a father and an employee? But they ask the mum all the time. So that's just how it is at the moment. But I do speak to women about taking some time to sit down with your partner and figure out, like, what is our strategy? What is our plan of action? Because if you're going back to work, then you're not going to be home to be doing all the things in the house and keeping the house clean and tidy, doing all of the chores and looking after the child. You're not there. So there has to be some kind of redistribution of roles. And so getting women to sit down first and foremost themselves and then with their partners and talking about like how we're going to make this work in terms of inside the home. And then also, if our child gets sick, who's going to pick them up? If I have a meeting and it's really important, are you going to be able to do it? Like just getting really practical about all of the possible scenarios that could come up when it comes to dealing with a child who's in childcare while you're at work and also managing and running a home and figuring out how are we collectively going to do this? So I'm very much an advocate of being a team. So, myself and my husband, we're team, and now my children, we're team E. And so it's all about taking things for the team sometimes. And it's all about figuring out how we as a unit are going to operate given what each individual is doing. And so I speak to my clients about how they can get to that place where they're more thinking collectively as opposed to it's all on me, the mum, to figure out everything.
Yeah, because it feels like it's such an energy drainer when you see that, because we've all seen, the mom where you're like, oh my God, you are so frazzled. You haven't been able to go to the bathroom with the door closed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You feel it, the waves coming off her. But you're very right that nobody expects men to do these things. And that's where a lot of mothers can find the source of, you could call it discrimination in the job market, is because employers assume that if little Timmy gets like a fever, it's going to be mama who's going to be picking him up,
Yeah, basically.
Which is not fair. It's part of why a lot of women leave the job market. I actually read this interesting survey, like this interesting research study that found out that with the LGBT population, most of the time they're going to be making less money than their straight counterparts, except for lesbians and straight women. Lesbians end up making more during their career because they're less likely to drop out of the job market for a little bit to raise a child. You know that there's something going wrong with the job market there, where just by leaving, so many women are just being forced to leave the job market. So
Yeah, and it's such a drain on resources in terms of the organizations because women leave and they take so much information and skills and, everything that they've acquired in terms of experience, they take that with them. So the firm or the organization then loses that and then they have to pay, recruitment fees and they have to hire someone else and train them up. And it just doesn't make sense. We need to be able to support women to bring them back because they have a lot to offer to the job market.
yeah, and it seems like there's so much now that you can do with remote work that it really doesn't seem like that much of a hardship to let somebody have a remote Friday or something like that.
Absolutely.
So, we've talked about a lot of different things, the challenges in the job market, the culture shock, what to do with them, baby daddies, and then, a little bit of the discrimination. But what would you say, let's go to the positives. What are some of the positives that happen to women once they become mothers? One thing I've noticed is that a mom's time management game is off the hook. If I could have those time management skills without having, I guess, the pressure of a child, which is the reason why y'all are able to do extreme pomodoros, what are some other benefits to being a working mom?
Well, yeah, I would just add that, mums become time management ninjas. Like you just manage to be super focused in the time that you have. And so I think that in terms of an employer looking for someone who's going to be diligent and get the job done, a mum is definitely going to do that. So I just think back to, prior to becoming a mum at work, you would take a break, you'd go and have a coffee and just chat with some colleagues in between doing work. When you're a working mum, you don't have time for that. You're just getting your head down because you need to leave the office. So being really focused is something that working mums definitely bring to the table. And also just being very aware. And I guess you gain a lot of other skills while you're raising your children, like patience, like negotiation skills. If you have to negotiate with a toddler, you can negotiate with anyone. So you're able to bring all that to the table. But in terms of benefits, I think that for the woman, being able to go back to work and have your own identity again and be you and not somebody's mum is a massive benefit for a woman. So you have your career and you also have motherhood and you're able to bring your A game to both of them and both of them bring something to the table that the other one can't. So being a working mum kind of allows you to excel in your personal capacity, but then also as a mother, which I think is a great opportunity. Yeah, the opportunity to just be contributing to the workforce and just be continuing to reach your potential in different ways. I think being a working mother allows you to do all of that.
And it also allows you to be a good role model for your kids on just different things that they can accomplish and they can achieve.
Yes, absolutely. And when your kids see that you work hard, when they get older, they'll be proud of you to know that, mum was able to raise me. She kept the house. She did this, she did that, and she achieved X, Y, and Z in her career. She did great things. So if she can do that, then I can do that. And so I think it's great for working mothers to be that role model and to show their children that anything's possible if you put your mind to it. And I always advise my clients that come to me and say, I just can't see how I'm going to make this work. This just doesn't seem possible. I encourage them to shift their mindset. So instead of saying, I can't make this work or I can't see how I'm going to make this work, I want them to say, how can I make this work? And start looking for ways that they can make it work. It might be that you haven't seen other people do it in the way that you would like to do it, but you can be the first. You can be the first person to work in a flexible way within your organization or your industry, and you can shape the way that you want to work. You just firstly need to believe that it's possible, and then you need to convince other people that it's possible.
Mm-hmm. And it's usually harder to do the first one, convincing yourself, than the other one. Other people are usually pretty easy to convince as long as you're really confident.
Exactly. So I definitely say to people, you can. I think people need to embrace that more, but often need encouragement and guidance as to how you go about doing that.
Well, you know what? I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to ask one last question from you, Janine, and then you're going to be able to let everybody know how you provide support, especially for any listeners who, they are working moms and they do need that support. They'll be able to find out all that from you. But my last question for you is, could you give us, all the working mamas, either one action step or one tip that they can take to just, add a little bit more productivity or ease and flow to their day? Do you have one cool tip that you can give all the working mamas?
Yeah, I would say batching. So, and when I say batching, I mean batching tasks that you have to do that are similar together. So within your day. So instead of just going into your day to your office and then just starting with your to-do list at the top and then working your way through it, I would say think about the different types of tasks that you're doing. So you might be answering emails, you might have to draft reports, you might have to speak to people on the phone, you might have meetings. Instead of jumping from working on an email and then doing a report and then having a meeting and then going back to working on another email, just group tasks together, because it takes a long time for your brain to have to switch gears. And so you're a lot less productive if you're going from one type of task to another. So if you want to have the most productivity and impact in the office, take time to group what you have to do together. So if people want to schedule meetings with you, maybe say like, I'm only going to do my meetings in the afternoon on this particular day. And linked to that is to think about, you know, your energy levels and when you have the most energy. And if you have the most energy in the mornings, then tackle the types of tasks that take a lot of energy and time at that time of the day. So ultimately, that's going to help you to be more productive in your work day and not drain your energy, so that when you go home to your children, you don't feel completely frazzled. So that's the one tip that I would give people.
Oh, great tip. No, that is a fantastic one. I actually need to be better at doing that. I'll do like a bunch of podcast episodes, editing them in a row, and I'll be like, oh man, that was so easy. But then I got one podcast to edit, and then it like takes me 2 weeks of procrastinating and like staring at it, being like, why is it easier to do when there's 5 of you?
Yeah, because your brain's in that mode. So it's just like, let me just do it and get it done. So that is definitely something that can make a huge difference.
You know, and I hope everybody who's listening, you know, and they're feeling on your vibe, Janine, that they go and they search your website, because I think for working moms, you know, they can be so isolated, you know, especially when you only people you're talking to, or it's like a 2-year-old, and then when your husband comes home, you know, you feel a little isolated. So let everybody who's listening know where they can find you on the web and what you're doing next.
Yeah, sure. So you can come and hang out with me in my private Facebook group, which is the Careers Beyond Motherhood group. And we have a group of women in there who are building their careers beyond motherhood. So it would be great to hang out with you and connect with you there. You can also check out my website, which is www.lightboxcoaching.com. So those are the 2 main places. I'm also on LinkedIn, of course. And right now I have been working on, and I launched last year and it's been very well received, is my course. So it's my signature course. It's a 4-week online course which prepares women for their return to work. So it's called the Smooth Return Course. And it's for the woman who is on maternity leave now and is going to be transitioning back to work soon, or is in the stage where they're pregnant and are thinking about what life after baby is going to look like. So the course takes them through the mindset that they need and the practicalities that they need to really hit the ground running as a working mother. So yeah, that's the Smooth Return course. And I've created a Smooth Return roadmap, which is essentially a 7-step guide for preparing for a calm and confident return to work. So if you wanted to grab that, you can at bit.ly/smooth return roadmap.
Awesome. Thanks for dropping your bit.ly, Janine. I think it's been a great episode, just giving everybody, you know, more tips and tricks on how they can navigate this crazy thing called working motherhood. My hat's off to all the mamas. You know that I love you, especially the mamas in my family, because they take the heat off me from having to produce any grandchildren. So thank you, mamas. Again, Janine, and thank you all for listening. As always, I'm Sami Gardner, and this is the Career Kickstart Show. Change your career, change your life at CareerKickstartAcademy.com.